Alrighty, howdy folks. Still connecting to the stream here, should be just a second. Actually, I should probably, I'll just leave it, it'll be fine. Welcome. So today we're going to be installing Arch Linux, picking up from where I left off last night with setting up this Dell Tower Plus desktop computer with the NVIDIA RTX A6000. We got Arch Linux booted in this Arch ISO for installing the operating system, and I stopped the stream while I was preparing the disks for encryption, which is a step that we can see right here if we look a bit ahead. But anyway, so that took some time to do. Basically, I had to fill the entire disk with encrypted data. That way, the entire disk looked like it contained data. So when we actually fill it with things, the empty parts are indistinguishable from the full parts. But that has finished. We can do LSBLK over here. And we can see I still have our to be wiped open, so I'm going to, close, to be wiped, yep. Okay, so SDA is a 2 terabyte hard drive, and NVMe N1 is a 1 terabyte solid state drive. So this is going to be our root file system, and this is going to be my home directory. Now, my plan for this is to do this LVM on LUKS setup for encryption, and it'll be a little bit more complicated in my version of this. Has my screen frozen? No, we're good. Yeah, so it'll be a little bit more complicated, my version of this, since I have 2 hard drives, but not terribly more complicated. Also, the LVM part of this isn't wildly necessary. I don't necessarily need to create LVMs for these because it's just going to be the root file system and home directories. But I'm going to do it anyway because LVM is quite flexible, and if I change my mind about things in the future, which I tend to do around here, then it would be nice if I can change that. So LVM is flexible and will allow me to do that. Hello, Tender Heisenberg. That's an excellent name. We are installing Arch Linux today. So let's just crack on. So part of the plan here is actually to create an Ansible role and use that Ansible role to do all of the configuration for this. Market News at Mastodon.social, thank you for sharing. Speaking of which, I should do the same. Yeah, so my plan for this is to use Ansible to configure my Arch Linux setup, but getting Ansible to also do all of this low-level installation stuff of, formatting hard drives and whatnot, that's a little bit much. So I'm just going to do that part manually here today. That's this stream. And once I get this thing to just boot into Arch Linux all on its own, then I am going to worry about configuring it to be the system that I like, and that's probably going to take a long time to do. I'll probably do that slowly. So let's crack on with it. What do I need to do here? Basically just need to format these disks. Let's see, prepare the disks. I have done that. We'll create the first partition to be mounted at boot and one to be and it has been a while since I have done this, so I have done this before. I know what I'm doing, but it might take me some time to remember exactly what these commands are, and also try to verbalize them as I'm doing it. It can be a bit challenging. So, let's see. I need to create a new partition. It'll be a primary partition. It'll be 1. First sector will be there. We'll do +1 gigabyte. Type Linux. I think I want to change the type to EFI. EF. Okay. And then I want a new one. Primary partition. It'll be 2, and I will allow it to take up the rest of the drive. I'm going to print and double check that everything is right, and it does look good. So we'll write Okay, NVMe, we have this will be our unencrypted boot partition, and this is going to be our encrypted home partition. But I also need to do SDA, and we're kind of going to do exactly the same thing, only this is only going to contain encrypted data, so I'm only going to create one partition on this. I guess that's not strictly necessary. I could just create the encrypted partition on this, but I would prefer it to be consistent. New, primary, partition 1, first sector, last sector, write it. Easy. Okay. Now we need to set these up as actual encrypted partitions. It's a little bit hard for you to see the commands or the documentation over here on the right, but I think the chat is more valuable, probably. Yeah, let's just leave it alone. Okay, so basically just follow along these commands. Now, create a LUKS encrypted container at the designated partition, chosen password twice. Okay. So I put in a manual password, something that I can type in, and that's kind of always good to keep on an encrypted drive in case you lose your key files, but I will probably also be adding a key file to this to make it a little bit, there's a step in the boot process where you would have to enter the encrypted password again if you don't have a key file, so adding a key file password onto this allows you to make that booting a little bit easier, but we'll get there. I need to do the same thing to SDA. And actually, I think I made a bit of a oversight already because there are some options. Yeah. See all these, so you can't really see it particularly well because of the chat, but the default options with that LUKS format that I just ran on NVMe partition 2, the defaults are, let's just read here. Defaults are compared with a cryptographically higher specification. Okay, that doesn't actually say what I'm trying to say. I can add a little bit more security to this cryptography by adding some things in there. So I'm actually going to LSB and our well, I guess we can just run that same command again, and we can add our extra commands. Sector size. Yeah, we were running into that sector size stuff last night, where it's kind of complicated to set it up, but I think just adding this in the command handles everything for us, so I should try it. If you'll excuse me for a moment, I need to solve a small problem over here. My nose became very itchy as soon as I started the stream. So that was distracting. Okay, so that looks like that worked out better, but I'm not sure about this sector size stuff. If I do LSBOK-TD, whoa, get back here. Sometimes this computer does that. And see, this is saying 512 is its sector size. Set the sector size in bytes for use with disk encryption. The default is 4096 for block devices that report themselves as 4KN and 512E, and 512 for those that report themselves as 512N. Increasing the sector size from 512 to 4096 can provide better performance on most modern storage. Yeah, we were reading about this last night, and it's okay, so that command where I have this sector size argument in the LUKS format, let's see if I can get it just barely into this line. It says the command will abort on an error if the requested size does not match your device. So it seems that putting this thing that's asking 512 into 4096 is going to be fine. We'll find out. Nous sommes vous. But we'll do the same thing to SDA1. Then I will need to open these containers. So and SDA1 is going to be home. Going to be root. That's yes. My keyboard will sometimes just repeat the last key that you pressed, and sometimes that's very inconvenient. This is the Dell Latitude 7230. It's a rugged tablet, so things like that kind of. It would be a real horrible thing if that was my desktop computer doing that. That would not be something sustainable. But on this kind of device, it's a little bit more tolerable. Okay, so we have our encrypted partitions open. Let's see. Now we need to prepare our logical volumes for. Maybe I should change the names of these. I get really caught up on naming things sometimes. But anyway, we're going to create these volume groups in them, and they are going to have names as well. And now I'm thinking that their names are going to be the same. So another thing I did in the past was just give it like a part of a UUID, as its name and name it like LUKS container or something. I might consider doing that again. Yeah, actually, I'm kind of thinking that's not a bad idea. And let's see. We can do that as a full command, actually. We don't need to copy paste anything. Copy pasting is for chimps. Need to mash one button to do things. We're coders. We can do things with technology. So let's do this slowly. I want field -1. Can I get field -1 out of that? Hey, that looks like it worked. It's a little bit short. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Yeah, the last segment of a UUID is generally long enough to give things a unique name on a system, and then you can just do something like this, where, you know, it's just LUKS container 390C and LUKS container 1DEF. And it just names it what it is with a unique tag, which makes it really easy to find in logs. It makes it's just very easy to work with. And, you know, if I start doing things like calling this root and calling this home, and then I put an LVM inside of it, what am I going to call that one? Should I call that one home LVM? And then what if I add something else later? It just becomes kind of complicated when you try to be fun with names. So naming it something very boring like LUKS container 39 is kind of the best option. So let's continue right along. We are going to create some LVMs on this. So pb create. 39 first. Okay, and volume groups. I suppose each one, I guess we'll have 2 volume. What is a volume group? Volume group is a logical volume management. A volume group in logical volume management is a collection of physical volumes that are combined to create a single storage pool. Okay, we are going to want to create different volume groups. It also makes your commands recyclable. It's going to generate a new one each time since I sub-commanded it. Anyway. Logical volumes. I think I just want to do 100% free on those. Yeah, on both of them. This I do need to copy paste a bit, so. And they're both going to just do 100% free, so it actually doesn't matter at this point which I'm putting where. No, it's really hard to read actually. Okay, let's clear this, and we've got volume group B, logical volume D, and volume group 86, logical volume 77. Both of those are inside of LUKS containers, and this looks like exactly what we want. So we can format file systems. Volume group B, logical volume D, both of them will be exe4. Okay, and hello there, Gifted Archimedes. That's a good name as well. Okay. The 86 logical volume 77, this is going to be our root file system, so I'm going to put that on MNT, and then do I want this to be everyone's home directory? Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, I think all home directories should be this extra thing, so let's just do that. It's the simplest possible. Okay, like open that gate so that turns off. My servers heat up throughout the day, and the cabinet has a fan that will turn on, so while I'm streaming, I'll just open the door so it doesn't bother us. But created those. I also need to create the boot system, boot file system, boot partition. There we go. Bootloader, kernel, loads kernel. Yeah. EFI and UEFI systems execute the following command to create the newly created partition. Okay, we are good. We can resume the installation guide, installation steps, and we are pretty good to go. We need to come back here to customize the initial RAM file system and the bootloader. We will return for now, it's probably fine. Mirrors. I think everything should be fine here. Only mandatory package is base. Okay. What's this -K argument in packstrap? I haven't seen this before. Initialize an empty Pacman keyring in the target, implies -G. Avoid copying the host's Pacman keyring to the target. Okay, that's fine with me. Let's see. Base, Linux firmware. Hello, Jolly Galileo. Man, these names are great. Tender Heisenberg, Gifted Archimedes, and Jolly Galileo. Glad you're here. Sorry your chat's a bit hard to see at the moment. I can change that if we start using it. Anyway. We're definitely going to need more. Let's see, I'm going to have Intel, Ucode. LVM 2. A lot of this I can handle afterwards, so that's not a huge problem. Linux firmware Marvel. And I don't think I have that. Okay, networking. I think DHCPCD is what I will need for that because I'm using Ethernet. And it's the one I'm familiar with. We'll go ahead and add NeoVim. Well, maybe we'll just add regular Vim for now. We'll add man. Okay, let me take a moment to think about this because I think I'll also need to install grub. They don't say anything about that. There we go. Yeah, this one line at the end about kind of the most important thing. Grub and EFI boot manager. We'll come back to this later. Pretty sure that's all I'm going to need. At least for this startup. Let's see. Base, Linux firmware, firmware, Intel Ucode, LVM2, DHCPCD, Vim, mandb, man pages, text info, grub, EFI boot manager. I'm sure I will be installing more as I go, but I think that's all I'm going to really need for this. And I guess some of it I might prefer to even leave for the configuration that I would do through Ansible, because things like Vim or man pages, that's not something I'm necessarily going to do on every Arch Linux installation. So it is kind of more of a configuration choice, but I don't know. This seems like a reasonable start to what we're doing. So let's go through this. And this can sometimes take a little bit of time. Not a huge number. Well, once you start installing, the Linux kernel, it gets a little bit longer. So, how are you all doing? How's it hanging, scientists? I'm in great company, it would seem. We can pull up a blank. Come on. It's actually not good. Remember the good old days where it used to be easy to look at things on Google Images? You could just click on it and, oh, okay, we're done. That's perfect. Okay. Let me just I can do this later. Okay. Configure the system. GenFS tab. Tender Heisenberg. Oh, welcome back. Yep, that looks good. I'm going to go into the new system. Ooh, so if I were to be fully honest here, we would do US/New York probably. Eastern is what I would do. But ooh, I can set my own computer to UTC because this is Arch Linux. Ooh. I kind of want to. Yeah, I like using UTC for stuff. Sync the hardware clock. Worry about time synchronization later. Edit the locales. So wait. Edit. see. I found it. There we go. Nice, enjoys the stream. Thanks, Johnny Galileo. I think we're going to. Let me see. Good. en_us.utf-8. Yep. Cal.conf. Okay. And console keyboard layout. Okay. I don't know that I did that. I did not set a console keyboard layout, so I might just leave that alone for now, and I can create that later if I need it. Host name. Tower Plus. Just name things what they are. That's not a fun name. Like this one gets to be latitude 7230. It's got a name. It's got like a number, and that's kind of cool. But and my previous desktop was Inspiron 3670. So you know it's cooler when they have names. But actually, let me take a look at the service tag. Nope, it's just called Tower Plus. That's okay. Tower Plus it shall be. Probably need to enable DHCPCD, but I'll deal with that later. Gave my machine the name mainframe. That's a pretty good one too. I have enough computers here and like some servers too. All of them are Dell, so it's nice to just name it exactly what it is, so that you know when I want to get into the latitude 7230, its name is exactly what it is. And I mean mainframe applies for that, but I can't really call any of these main. But creating a new initial RAM FS is not usually required because making it CPIO is run. Do this. Modify this and create yeah, we're going to need to come back here. Let's go ahead and set the password for this. And always use secure passwords. Okay. Let's go ahead and install our bootloader. Well, I want to come back here and just see. Return to this page to customize the initial RAM FS and bootloader steps. Okay. We installed LVM2 already. If using the default BusyBox-based initial RAM FS, add the keyboard, encrypt, and LVM2 hooks to making it CPIO.conf. I remember not liking this part when I've done it. Base udev. If using system D-based initial RAM FS, instead add the keyboard SD encrypt and LVM2 hooks. If you use a non-US console key map, SDV console. How do I know? I have a weird feeling that I'm on system D. How would I know? Ah. System D has already started at the beginning of the initial round. Pros to System D, tightly integrated with the rest of the System D ecosystem, leading to a more consistent and streamlined boot process, parallelize certain boot tasks. Init script is starting. Yeah, I don't know. I guess this is like where I'm making the decision. It looks like by default it uses, yes, if using the default BusyBox-based init RAMFS. Let's keep it as default for now, and if we want those additions, we can get them. We already have udev. Let's see, KMS, keyboard is there, key map is there, console font is there. We need encrypt and LVM2. Oh god, this configure the bootloader. I think that's all we need to do here. In order to unlock the encrypted root partition at boot, the following kernel parameters need to be set by the bootloader. Okay, so this is where we need to edit our grub. And I need some UUIDs from the device. The root equals parameter does not need to be set. Boy, this is the stuff that I really don't remember at all. Now I have like way too many tabs open. was this one. Kernel parameters you need to specify depend on whether the encrypt or SD crypt hook is being used. I have an example of this somewhere. How do I get the device UUID? Let's take this one step at a time. BOK ID. Ooh, yeah, that's easy to look at. Pretty sure it's this. CHL Galileo. Yeah, this part's kind of weird. And I'm pretty sure you need the underlying, like, this thing. Well, it says I don't need to specify this root thing manually. But I have two crypto devices. Do I need to put multiple in there? Let's ask a chatbot. Set kernel parameters in grub. Specify the crypt device. Yeah. Yeah, you can specify multiple. Okay. So we can get our SDA1 here, which also is a crypt device. I think this is how it works. I don't really remember. And it's saying I don't need to set the root, but I don't really trust that. Oof, I really am not sure about these values. When using, look at this green box here. When using grub and generating grub.cfg with grub make config, the root equals parameter does not need to be specified manually. It's great. Root make config will determine the correct UUID of the decrypted root file system and add it to this automatically. Yeah, the problem is I have two devices, and I don't have an example of that. So like the grub configuration for two devices being decrypted. I mean, I can't really think of anything else to do. Okay. Might need to do this whole thing again once I run this grub install command. So I'm going to grab these values and make sure I can use them. Okay. Grub install. Maybe we'll just call it grub. Main configuration file needs to be generated. That's a default.grub. Crypt key. Passphrase is to be used. Okay. Yeah, this is, I can use a key file here. I'm not going to do that with this. Ooh, yeah. I remember this stuff. There we go. Etsy crypt tab. Okay. Crypt tab. Do I need to put anything for this? Pretty sure I do. So this crypt tab file is going to, I think, open things on boot. So I give it a name. It is, where's 39? That one's home. Wait, what? No, it's not home. It's UID. Yeah, this is the part where I don't quite remember things. pretty sure this is correct. Okay, so yeah, this file is telling the machine like where to try and unencrypt things at boot time. So this stuff is kind of confusing to me because you like specify a bunch of things in a bunch of different places. So like Grub seems to Grub needs to be aware of where these encrypted files are. The initial RAM disk needs to know where they are, and this crypt tab gets loaded later before FS tab to decrypt the devices, but shouldn't they already be? I don't really know. Password. Anyway, we might not be able to successfully boot the first time, which is disappointing, but that's okay. We'll get there. And this is saying mount. Okay, this is going to prompt me for passwords. Here's where it says you can unlock with a key file. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this looks kind of correct. Encrypting logical volume. No. Got a few too many tabs open here. Okay. I think we're good. I think I just need to grub, make my config, or just making it CPIO-P. We'll do that one first. I don't know why, but yeah, it says that. Grub make config-o. And I think that's it. I'm like a bit suspicious that this is not going to work. I think I just need to reboot now. So, okay, I guess I'm just going to reboot. We'll see what it does. In 1 second. Looks good. Doesn't really like this. It says a password is required to access the volume, which is good, but then it's saying command requires device and mapped name as arguments. So apparently I have done this incorrectly. That's okay. I think the problem is that grub config that I made. And so I'm going to need to remount all of those, unencrypt them manually. I will remount them, and I'm going to edit that grub config to take out the second thing. So I put in the two, what are they called? This crypt device in naked at CPIO, was it? No, it was grub config, crypt device thing. This camera angle makes me very aware of my posture. Okay, set a password here. 1.5. Okay, we are back. We don't need to preserve the names right now. And actually, we don't even... We'll do this anyway. I don't really need to mount the home directory again. That's kind of unnecessary. Okay. I don't think I need to mount home directory. Go back in, let's vim etc default grub. I'm pretty sure that the problem is this grub command line Linux. It wants that root equals argument for this crypto device. And so I'm just going to take this out. And I bet crypttab is going to unlock that, and then fstab loads after crypttab, so we should still be able to mount our home directory. It should just ask for the password twice, but I need to... Did that say it was good? Done. Okay. I think that will work. Command requires device and mapped name as arguments. Hello, Ultimate Hugel. Currently trying to solve command requires device and mapped name as arguments in this encryption. Forgotten to include the required crypt device mapped name in the kernel command line parameter. I had a feeling. Turn it off and back on. Boot the USB again. The second colon separated field is mandatory. That does, yes, now that I'm thinking about it. Pretty sure I won't need to decrypt it again, crypt tab, but maybe I just, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. See, this is why I think this is weird, is that, like, grub needs, I'm just taking a guess here, don't write this down in the wiki or anything, but my guess as to what's happening is that grub needs the ID of the drive just for booting, so I don't tell it about this home drive or anything like that. So grub is going to open that up and boot everything, but then I think at some point in that boot process, it closes the drive again. It does not keep it open and just pass it off to the live system afterwards. I'm guessing that the live system needs to unencrypt it again, and that's where our crypt tab is coming in. Je ne sais pas, but still 35, no, 36 again. I need that LUKS container name. Now I'm wondering about the home container. I'm going to not do the home container. We'll experiment. I think that's going to work though. Reboot one more time. Work. Work. I do not wish to see nature. I wish to see Arch Linux. Got a good feeling. Hey, that looks pretty good. Okay. See it work. Okay. Looks like we are in. Hey, we are in. Sweet. Okay. Yeah, we've done it. Mission successful. I think I might actually call this here. It's extremely boring what I have at this point because it's kind of just the bare minimum. It booted. I logged in as the root. There's nothing going on. It didn't even connect to the internet over the Ethernet port because DHCPCD is not enabled. But I think that's where I want to end this one because thank you very much, Ultimate Hugel. So yeah, the next step is going to be actually configuring this into being the machine that I want, and I'm going to be doing that with an Ansible role. So this video is going to go on my discourse server. On my YouTube channel there's the last night's video, and on the forum discourse.eom.dev there is an existing post of the hardware setup for this device. I will put this video in that thread as well as a link to the PR that I or the repository that I eventually create for the Ansible role. So, thank you very much for joining me here today, and I will see you in the near future. Toodaloo. Where's the button? How do I stop this madness?